Hey there, nice sunny day today here at Höhenpark Killesberg. Perfect conditions to put the Galaxy S8 Plus Pro mode through its paces, because it is really quite good, so you might as well make good use of it. Once again, we're going to take a look at options, possibilities, limitations, and maybe a trick or two. So let's do it. Now, before we do anything, let's take care of the basic camera settings. So, enter the camera, then bottom right icon gets you right into camera settings. Rear camera, picture size, 4x3, 12 megapixels. Video size, Ultra HD 4K. Tracking autofocus, not interesting right now, sometimes useful. Later on, we're going to take a closer look at that. Shape correction, you're not going to get much of a result from it, but it's not a mistake to have it turned on either. Timer set to off later on when we're going to use very slow shutter speeds. That can come in very handy to avoid camera shake. HDR rich tone turned off. Auto mode sometimes doesn't work well in my experience. If I want an HDR looking image, I will tweak it in post-production. Front camera, picture size, 4x3, 8 megapixels. Video size, QHD 2.7K. Save pictures as previewed, not as flipped images. Yes, please. Shooting methods, now you can experiment with those. I basically never use them. Timer, off. HDR rich tone, off. Same settings as with the rear camera. Motion photo, not interesting right now. Video stabilization, yes, please. Grid lines, 3x3 or square. I favor the 3x3. In my opinion, it's the best compromise when it comes to a grid that actually helps you in composing shots but doesn't crowd up the screen. So for me, 3x3 it is. Location tags, not interesting right now. Review pictures after you take them. If you're doing a lot of stills, that can come in handy. I usually shoot video, so I have this turned off. Quick launch, I rarely use, to be honest, but if things move fast, double tapping the home button will get you right into the camera app, which might get you the shot and make a real difference. Storage location, for me it's SD card. I got 256 gigabytes in there, and if you're shooting a lot of video with a smartphone, I would recommend you do the same. Voice control, I have that turned off because whenever I shoot video, there might be people around and they might by accident start or stop my recording, or I might do that myself. Floating camera button can come in very handy at times. It looks like this. There's a second camera button that you can use to take a picture. However, I don't take a lot of stills, so I usually don't need a floating camera button. But now you know it's there. Volume key function, I set that to record video because sometimes the volume keys are much easier to reach than the record or the shutter button on the screen. And that's it for basic camera settings. Let's dive right into the Pro mode. First feature, autofocus area. So once you're inside the camera app, swipe right once and select Pro. Second on the left from the top, that's autofocus area. There's two options, center and multi-autofocus area. This is an example of center autofocus area. And what you gotta know about this mode is, it's a tiny autofocus area. Only what's dead center in the frame will be in focus. See how tiny it is? Focus, autofocus, focus, autofocus. The other autofocus area, which I use like 95% of the time, is called multi. And here is why I use it so often. Multi-autofocus area is a much larger autofocus area, also indicated by these tiny yellow squares that keep popping up. This will allow you to position a subject or yourself to the side and get a nicer composition while still being in focus. Also, these tiny yellow squares make it easy to determine where focus is when situations make it hard to judge where focus is. So in like 95% of the time, multi-autofocus area will be the better choice because it allows for more creative freedom and a nicer composition. Only if you want nothing in focus, but what is dead center in the frame, you could switch to center autofocus area. Me personally, almost all the time, I shoot multi. Next up, metering modes. Third option on the left from the top, and you can choose between three different ones: matrix metering, spot metering, and center weight metering. Let's start with an example of matrix metering. Now here you can toggle the metering modes: spot, center weight, matrix. Now for a shot like this, where you don't have a foreground-background situation, Usually matrix metering will yield the best results because when it comes to exposure, it takes into account the whole image, trying to make sure no highlights clip and blacks are not dropped too hard. However, if you do have a foreground-background situation, like I'm having right now, if you're filming yourself or taking a picture of yourself, you might benefit from center weight metering. So here's an example. This is what my camera, my A6500, looks like using center weight metering. This metering mode emphasizes what is in the middle or the center area of the screen. If I now switch back to matrix metering, watch what happens. Did you notice it? The whole image just got a little darker because matrix metering functions differently than center weight metering. Once again, this is center weight metering. This metering mode places emphasis on the center area. It works very well in foreground-background situations. And if I once again switch back to matrix metering, you can see the results. Third metering mode is called spot metering, and you're rarely going to use it if ever. And here's why. Now, spot metering really doesn't care for anything except what's right in the middle of the screen, and it tries to expose that as brightly as possible. The effects don't really kick in if you don't have a clear foreground-background situation, but check out what happens if I close it on the camera. Boom! Background completely blown out. And that's because spot metering quite simply doesn't care. What's in the middle, that's game. Anything else is unimportant. So as you can see, spot metering can yield very unattractive results. So, no foreground-background situation, matrix metering. If you have a foreground-background situation, probably center weight metering is the best mode to be in. You could experiment and switch between matrix and center weight. And basically, stay away from spot metering altogether. Third option on the left from the bottom, that's the flash. You can have it set to auto, turned on, or turned off, which is what I usually prefer because I don't necessarily like the aesthetic of flash photography. Then again, with a handheld shot in a low light scenario, it probably is your best bet if you want to get a sharp image. So here's a quick comparison, no flash and flash. Nice shot, reasonably sharp considering we're looking at 800 ISO on a smartphone. And now let's turn the flash on. Here we go again. Definitely sharper than the other version, but overall a completely different image. Different look, different feel altogether. So when it comes to using or not using the flash, my tip is make it a deliberate decision. Don't just set it to auto and see what happens. Second option on the left from the bottom lets you toggle 4:3 and so-called full view mode. I rarely use it, if ever, and here's why. If you're doing stills and you're in full view mode, you're automatically losing resolution because you no longer take a 4:3 still, you now take a still with the aspect ratio of your smartphone screen. In case of the S8 Plus, that is 16:10. On the other hand, if you did take a 4:3 image, you could always crop it later to whatever aspect ratio you would see fit. But that option is out the window as soon as you're in full view mode. If you're shooting video and you're framing the shot with 16:10, and then hit record, you're going back to a 16:9, so probably your framing will be off. So, although full view looks rather nice, me personally, I rarely use it. First option on the bottom from the left, that's toggling selfie camera and rear camera. A simple tap will do, but you could also swipe down or swipe up to get the same effect. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. First option on the right from the top is called exposure compensation. Should you have set everything else and still don't like what you're getting, this is a way to alter the image to your liking. Shutter speed has to be set to auto though for this option to be available. Currently it's grayed out, so let's change that. This is where it would be. Tapping it doesn't do anything. That's because shutter speed is set at a fixed value. Now it's set to auto, and there we go, exposure compensation is available. Let's say I want to place emphasis on the foreground statue. To do that, I will set it to -1. Now the statue looks perfectly exposed. Let's take a still. However, should I want to place emphasis on the background, I could also go the other direction to say a +0.5. Now the statue is overexposed, but the background is more emphasized. Again, let's take a still, and for reasons of comparison, let's take one without compensating the exposure. Let's compare. This is what the camera would do. Not particularly an emphasis on the background or the foreground, and the statue is slightly overexposed. This is an emphasis on the background at +0.5, with the statue now being overexposed, but the background being way more visible. And now this is what I would do. Place emphasis on the foreground statue, have it exposed correctly, and be okay with the fact that the background isn't as bright as it could be. And that's how easy it is to use exposure compensation. As always, start with the idea, know where you want to go, and then go by feel, go where your intuition takes you. And remember, shutter speed has to be set to auto for this option to be available. Second option on the right from the top is called white balance. Now I leave this set to auto pretty much all the time because the S8 Plus is doing a really good job in auto mode. However, should you want to deliberately change the feel of a scene, you will definitely benefit from setting the white balance manually. And here's how it's done. Currently, this is what auto white balance gets us. So let's come right here and let's come to the Kelvin value. Standard is that the higher the Kelvin value, the cooler the color temperature, and the lower the Kelvin value, the warmer. With the S8 Plus, for some reason, it's the other way around. Doesn't matter, we can still get done what we want to get done. So let's say you want to make this scene feel a little more distant and self-sufficient. A cooler color temperature will benefit you. Maybe 4300K is alright. Let's take a still for reasons of comparison. Now, if you want to make this scene feel more friendly, welcoming and open, going the other direction is probably a good idea. As always, go by feel, go by intuition. 8500K looks nice. Let's take a still. And now let's go back to auto and also take a still so we can compare. Now this is what the S8 Plus will get you in auto mode. This is the warmer color temperature and this is the cooler color temperature. And as you could see, altering the white balance is super simple. It can yield both subtle as well as drastic results. Again, start with an idea, then go by feel. Now as far as focusing goes, there's basically two options: manual focus and autofocus. Let's check out autofocus first. Now obviously, after having chosen your autofocus area, you could just let the camera do its thing, and that usually works quite well. Then of course, there's also touch autofocus, pretty self-explanatory. Just tap on the screen where you want focus and exposure to be. Little known feature, if you tap hold, you can set the exposure separate from the focus, which is super helpful if you're trying to design shots. This only works if shutter speed is set to auto though. One tap and you're back with touch autofocus, some movement, and you might go back to regular autofocus area focus. Then there's tracking autofocus, which you have to activate from inside the camera settings. Once you've done that, a tap will start the tracking process, and that usually works really well. Autofocus performance sometimes is a little slowed down, but in general, the camera, if the lighting situations are okay, does a good job. And if you don't move too much, or if you move within reason and don't go crazy, tracking usually works well. And even if you sometimes do go a little crazy, if it can, the camera will pick up on the original subject again, like it did just now. And of course, there's always the option to re-tap and have the camera track again. I rarely use tracking autofocus, so I'm going to turn it off again. Then of course, you could also go to manual focus. And in case of the S8 Plus, to help you with focusing, you get focus peaking, which will highlight the areas in focus green. So right now, focus is on the background, but I want to focus on the foreground. So I drag down towards the flower icon, and there it is. Now the foreground is in focus. Background, foreground. Super simple. Now manual focusing, obviously, you will almost exclusively do when you're doing a premeditated design shot, because for handheld shots, it doesn't really make sense. But as you could see, the autofocus system of the S8 Plus and its different options really work well, and in like 99% of the time will get you the results that you want. And now let me show you how you can take maximum close-up shots with the S8 Plus in the most simple way. Once in Pro mode, come to autofocus, go to manual focus and drag all the way down here to the little flower icon. Now you've set the focus to the max close limit. And this is how you're going to take your max close-up shots. Now, this way, instead of closing in on a subject and then fiddling with the focal plane, you simply move the smartphone until the image is in focus. Way more easy to get maximum close-up shots. By the way, using a wide-angle converter like this one right here from Moment will allow you to get even closer. Third option on the right from the bottom is called picture profiles. Basically, what it boils down to is in smartphone color grading. Little disclaimer right here before we check out how this works. The more tailored a picture profile is to a given scenario, the less likely you will be able to use it in any other scenario. So, only if I wanted to premeditate or design a shot would I refer to either the presets or a completely custom profile. 99% of the time I leave this set to auto because the auto picture profile usually yields good results in about every situation. But now let's check out how to do this. Now let's do something with this shot. Currently the picture profile is set to standard. These are the presets: breezy, vivid, nostalgic, soft, serene, and the completely custom ones, tone 1 and 2. You can alter any preset except for the standard one, because right there, the little crayon icon on the top, right next to the standard picture profile, is grayed out. Let's come to tone 1 and let's do something right here. Now, always start with an idea. What do I want? I want to make this look like autumn or summer. Way warmer and more welcoming than it does right now. So first thing I could do is up the color temperature considerably. You can make it bluer or yellower. I want to make it warmer. With the tint, you can either go green or magenta. I will go a little magenta. Contrast, I'm not touching right now. Saturation, you could desaturate, or what I want to do, saturate, considerably so. Highlights, could take them back or raise them a little, which is what I choose to do. Shadows, you could bring them up or make them more pronounced. I like them more pronounced. Now contrast, do I even have to alter this? Nah, I actually like it the way it is. Now, once you like what you got, top right corner, hit save. And now, let's take a still with the new picture profile, and let's take one with the standard picture profile so we can compare. Now this is standard, and this is with the altered picture profile. Completely different look. So this is how it works, and as you could see, you can completely change the look and the feel of the picture you're taking. Once again, only do this if you want to premeditate and design a shot. Most of the time, the auto profile will work just fine. Last two options in the bottom right corner are called shutter speed and ISO. There's a lot to know about both of them, but for the purposes of this video, we're going to talk about the relation between the two as far as it relates to a low light situation like this. Because I believe in such a scenario, you're going to benefit the most from setting both of those manually. Right behind me, I've set up a shot, so let's check out what we can get using auto mode. Now this is the shot and we're currently in auto mode, so let's take a still. And let's look at it a little closer. Bright areas seem fine, but as soon as we take a look at the darker areas, we notice a lot of digital noise. And if we come over here, it becomes painfully apparent. That is by no stretch of the imagination the actual texture of that surface. See how grainy and dirty the image gets. And it's exactly this digital noise that we're gonna get rid of now. But why do we get such results in the first place? Well, for lack of a better word, the smartphone assumes that you want to take a shot like this handheld. So to avoid motion blur, it uses a fast shutter speed. A fast shutter speed, unfortunately, lets in only little light. So the only other option it has to get a somewhat decently exposed image is to artificially enhance the brightness via raising the ISO value. And that is where all the digital noise comes from. What we're going to do next is the opposite. We're going to sacrifice being able to take the shot handheld, smartphone rests on a tripod, which will allow us to use a very slow shutter speed, which lets in a lot of light. And because we're getting a lot of light from the shutter speed setting, we can afford to keep the ISO all the way down at 50, which with the S8 Plus is the lowest possible value, which will eliminate the digital noise. So let's check out how it's done. Now swipe right once and enter Pro mode. And before we do anything, let's come to camera settings, come to timer, and select 2 settings. Why? I'm going to show you in a minute. Now obviously I've already done the shot and I know the settings. Here's the basic procedure. Select ISO and bring it all the way down to 50. Then select your shutter speed. I know that a shutter speed of 8 seconds will yield the desired results. So let's take a still. And the 2-second delay of the timer function will ensure there is no camera shake whatsoever while the image is being taken. Now let's check out the results. Obviously, much brighter image. Bright areas look fine, but now also the darker areas look much cleaner, much less digital noise, overall much more pleasing image to look at. And that's how easy it is. Sacrifice being able to take the shot handheld, use a tripod or whatever means necessary to keep the phone steady, use the timer function to avoid motion blur by activating the shutter, use a very slow shutter speed that lets in a lot of light, and keep the ISO all the way down. And you will get much nicer results in a low light situation. Now as far as video is concerned, unfortunately you can't go below a shutter speed of 1/30th of a second, because when shooting video that would introduce motion blur, which for video is at best an artistic effect, but by no means a setting with which you can shoot regular video. So my only tip is, go with a compromise between an underexposed image and a super grainy image. And when in doubt, go with the less grainy image. Just real quick, to the rescue of motion blur, if you will. For stills, it can actually look quite cool. The next shots are done with a shutter speed of 1 second. Let's take a look, see what we got. Ah, that's a nice one. And that's a nice one. So that's how you make good use of motion blur. So, if you liked the video, if you found it helpful, please make sure to leave a thumbs up, it's greatly appreciated. Any kind of comment or feedback is welcome, and I'll try to answer as quickly as possible. All the tech that I've used in this video is linked in the description. As always, thank you so much for your time, thank you for watching, and hopefully see you again soon.